Hey guys, so if you all remember that I fixed up this Tronxy over here in my last video, but I had to take the board out of this guy. So what I did was I installed an SKR1.4 Turbo, and I'm actually just finishing up on that, getting the test print done, and let's have a look here. Obviously, we're working on a Benchy. And we have waiting on, actually, I have a short cord for this. I'll tell you more about that in the video. But let's talk about how we did this next. Hey everyone, welcome back to the corner. It's me, Jeff, and this week we're going to install an SKR 1.4 Turbo on this Tronxy right here. In our last video, you saw what I did. I took the board out of this one because I bought this used Tronxy for $100 with a blown board. I stuck her in there to get it all working. Now she runs beautifully. Absolutely great. But I didn't have a motherboard for this. I do have an SKR 1.4 Turbo board kicking around, so we're going to install that in this with the 2209 drivers. And what we're going to do is, I don't have a problem with trying to model a bracket to put the board in or writing my own firmware, but those tools are already out there, so I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel on this. There was a bracket on Thingiverse for an SKR to CHU board conversion. So we're going to use that bracket. I'll tell you about that because I had to modify it a little bit. And then we're going to use Chris Riley's SKR 1.4 tutorial where he built a Marlin 2.05, I think, firmware for a build he was doing. So we're just going to grab his firmware and we're going to convert it onto the Tronxy. Again, it's going to be a stepping stone into Marlin, just changing a few values. And then we're going to get this Tronxy up and running, okay? So stay tuned. All right, so what I've got here is I've got my Tronxy disassembled, my XY2 Pro, and I have printed out a plate from Thingiverse, which is right here. This was a CHU board to an SKR 1.4 conversion board. But there's a problem with it. It's really cool actually because you would put your stepper fan here and then it would just slide in here. But my challenge is that it doesn't quite fit because for the Tronxy it was made, I guess, for something that there's a couple of bolts here that sit in the way. So what I've done is I'm going to mount the stepper fan on here, but I've just gone into Tinkercad and I've just made an opening here so it will fit right over the board. So that's just basically going to go right here like this and slides in perfectly. So that's your mount. You're going to need a couple of M3.6s or M3.8s and probably with a washer to hold this down and secure it. And then you'll be able to mount your SKR board, which I've kind of already got going on here, right in the spot. And the good thing about this mount is it will actually line up perfectly with your holes for your USB and your SD card. So you won't have to play around with that or anything, which is really, really good. So the second thing we're going to do is so I bought a second one of these off of AliExpress because with the ribbon cable that we have for this printer, it was either I would have to individually run lines all the way up, or I could buy this for, I think it was under $20 US, in order to simply attach it in this area. Now the beautiful thing about Tronxy is they actually have two mounting points. You see these right here? And they actually have a slot right up here that this fits into. Let's see here if I can get it in there. Absolutely perfectly. Can I just bend that up there. See, it fits perfectly. You're going to need a couple of M5 screws. You're probably going to need 2 M5 4s or 6s. I only have 8s. So all I did was I just put a bolt on the end of them. And then I'm just going to screw these in. Then we should be able to just grab our ribbon cable, mind the notch, and insert it, and it will click right in perfectly. So that's done. That's out of the way. Another thing you want to make sure of and pay attention to is with your fans, it seems like the Tronxy wires, their polarity is backwards. So you're going to need to switch your fan wires in order to hook this up. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install the board here, and then I'm going to do all that little wiring stuff, okay? So stay tuned. The only thing I need to do is actually this peg right here. I just need to cut that off, and that's the only modification I need to do. I have my Dremel here, and I'm going to cut that off because here's my frame for my SKR board. And if I put this in here, let's see if I can get you to see here. The board will actually short out on that pin, so you need to cut that off. So I can do that now. So after I've mounted everything, I am worried about this little stud here. It's really close to when I mount this into one of these here. So I'm just very worried that it might just short out my board, and there's no point to actually take that risk whatsoever. So I've already ground down this one. I think I'm just going to grind down this one with the Dremel. Pull this off. So I've got the board in now, and I've got that small breakout board right up here. Here, let's see if I can adjust the angle here. So sort of that 50-50 thing right there. There we go. So I got the small breakout board, the main board, all my steppers in, the stepper fan cooler motor here, or the stepper fan here. Now, there's a couple things that I need to do still. These are the wires from the power supply. These are tinned. I'm going to actually trim these and replace these with some ferrules. Make sure I have a really good connection. And same with the heat bed ones here that are also tinned. So I'm going to work on stuff like that. I think I need to, yeah, it's going to, a lot of these fits are going to be real tight. So I'm going to need to plan just these ones. This is the bed thermistor, so that will plug in down there. These are all the various Z. Is this the Z stop here? The Y stop and the Y. So these will plug in directly to the board here. These will plug in directly to the board here. But for the rest, I need to get some jumpers here. Now I do have various little jumpers. So basically, I believe you're going to need, what are we going to need here? We're going to need 2 female to female, or can I get the other one in there? Yeah, female to female 4-pin jumpers. We need 2 of those. I have those here. We're going to need three 2-pin female to female jumpers. I have those here. And then you're going to need, what else are we going to need here? 3 3-pin jumpers as well. So I'm going to work on all these. I need to get my 3-pin jumpers going. These are spare parts I've had kicking around in my wire bin basically. So I'm going to use these to do this. I'm just going to put new connectors on them and they should be fine. And then I'll just, basically you're just jumping them from here to here, 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 to here. Instead of actually, because what you would have to do is run a new harness all the way around. So because you have the breakout board and it was under 20 bucks, it's just, your cost of wire and everything else is probably just easier to do it this way. And there's a cool little spot. There's actually another spot here to put another fan in here. I might just do that too. We'll see how it goes, but stay tuned. All right, guys, welcome back. I did the wiring and I removed the wiring because I want to show you how to do the wiring. Okay, so I got my pointy pen here because people were saying that I shouldn't be pointing boards with Allen keys or anything. So hopefully this will be fine. So when you take out your original board, you're going to have your Y and your Z axis for your steppers as these black wires here. You're also going to have your heat bed thermistor. And let me just pull these guys over here. You're going to have your power from your power brick. So note the ground position is, can you see that? Yeah, you can see that. So the ground position is the bottom one, the one closest to the frame. And then your power is the next one up. And then your next two are going to be your heat bed power. So those don't matter if they're positive or negative. As you note, I did put ferrules on the end as opposed to just the soldering that they did. They did the tinning on there. And then what I have is, here's my E0, and I'm hooking that up to the small board here to the E0, okay? I just wanted to give you guys a big, I will zoom in on this in a minute. I just wanted to give you the basics here. And then you're gonna have your Y, which is your second stepper in, and your Z, which is the third in, okay? So Y is number 2, Z is number 3. Okay, your heat bed thermistor is going to go to the furthest input where the thermistors go towards this leg here, okay? That's your heat bed thermistor. And the following one here, that would be your hot end thermistor, okay, or your E0 thermistor. Okay, so now your screens go here and here with the EXP 1 and 2, or what, I don't remember the exact name of them. Now, I had a funny screen. I actually bought the wrong screen. I bought the B1 version of the TFT 35, but they all go in this port here, okay, which is the second port up, and it's a simple plug-in. Now, if you get the one with the, I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4 wires together in a single wire, the single wire goes on the side towards the fuses. Okay, this is what communicates your TFT board in touchscreen mode. And now we're going to continue wiring up. So I'm just going to move the camera so you guys can get a better view of the small breakout board. Okay, so here's the small breakout board. Everything's labeled appropriately, so you can just follow up. I will go one at a time, I guess. I'll go from left to right, top to bottom, Now note, the only thing that's already hooked up, because I don't want to play around with it, this is the heat block for the hot end, which is right here, and that plugs into, I have mine here, okay, to these two right here, and I have those plugged into there. Okay, so let's begin. Let us begin. We will take because this is where it gets kind of all funky dunky here, right? So, okay. So this one here, which is this one over here, it's labeled as fan 0 on the board. This goes into fan 2 here, okay? Okay, next is my X motor. I did label these so I would know, right? Because it is confusing to try and figure it out. So that's the first stepper right beside the Y. So that's the first stepper port, is your X motor, okay? So we're gonna plug that in. We're gonna attempt to plug that in. All right. Next, the E1 motor, which is this one right here. So the E1, so notice with the Z, there's a gap of one stepper. That's if you have two Z motors. They can be controlled with this port here. So this is your extruder 0 on the board, I believe. I could be wrong with these names, but it's the 1, 2, 3 space. So X, Y, Z space extruder. And then we just plug that into the second extruder. All right, so this one right here is your extruder temperature. And that's the one right beside the heat bed down here. So that would be the second one in from this side. That's your extruder temperature. So we're going to use that and we're going to plug that in. Okay. Now, this is your level. Okay, your level sensor is going to be your Z sensor here. I think that's your Z-min, whatever it's assigned to in Marlin. It goes right here anyways. So let's just plug that bad boy in. Next is your X stop that we're doing sensorless homing, so we don't need. And then finally your filament run out. Or not finally, but soon to be finally. So you want to make sure, because I'm using DuPonts on this side, but just make sure that your wires are all in the proper order when you're plugging them in. They're not backwards or anything. And then finally, this guy here is going to be your other fan, okay? So over here, if you follow this blue wire, that's that Tronxy fan for the stepper coolers. So I just plugged it in right here, and that's going to blow air and keep my steppers cool. Now what you can't see is I also added another fan right here. It's all there. There's already a port for it. And all I'm going to do with this one is plug it in at the very end here. If I can. Ah, there we go. All right. And that is the wiring on the board. That's it. Super simple, super easy. You can zip tie this stuff up to make it a little cleaner and to do some wire management. I'll probably end up doing that at some point in time. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. So, but that's the wiring, and that's it. So there you have it. There's all the wiring involved, a little bit of the modifications to the case, and the install of the breaker board and the main board. Now just remember, we're using 2209 stepper drivers. So with the 2209s, if you leave them alone, they will do sensorless homing. You're going to have to cut the one pin in order for it to use end stops. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to leave the pins complete for the X and the Y, because we're going to be doing sensorless homing with those. But for the Z and for the extruder, we are going to cut those pins. So just be prepared for that, okay? It's really easy, and there's lots of guides online. Chris goes over it in his video. But yeah, this is what you have, and this is what you need, okay? So in order not to have like an hour-long video on this, we're going to break it down. So I think we're done for this video for this week, where we have the wiring in, and we put the breakout board and the regular board, and we showed you how to modify the case and what bracket you need in order to install them. And then, so next video, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the screen firmware, how to flash that, as well as how to install Marlin. Okay, so thanks a lot for watching.